Kore Mwapenduka and welcome to Africa Good Morning, the show that keeps you up to date with the latest news in Africa and beyond. I am Glenora Shipura, joined by Diana Master. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
I have to say, I have missed you.
I have missed you so much. I've not seen you. It feels like a week.
I think it has been. I think we only get to host together once a week.
Yeah, it's unfair.
It's unfair.
She's my sister from another mother.
From another mister.
Yeah, from another mister.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, but before we talk about our familial ties, let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Kenya's KenGen plans to expand geothermal projects into Tanzanian market. A 72-hour truce between Sudan's warring generals takes effect. Measles and whooping cough outbreaks in South Africa, a sign of low vaccination coverage, experts warn. We'll also be crossing over to Zambia to speak to Mike Sichila as he updates us on all the news making headlines that side. Stick around, we'll be back with our top stories right after this break.
Newsprint Namibia is a web offset printing operation that specializes in the printing of newspapers and commercial inserts. We are the leaders in our industry, with the highest quality print work and the shortest turnaround time from computer to print and delivery anywhere in the country daily. Newsprint was established mainly as a newspaper print company, but had to diversify its business to do commercial printing as required in the market. We print commercial inserts previously printed in South Africa in the shortest possible time. We, as an organization, also started printing workbooks for our education system and will also print textbooks for the Namibian market. For more information, please contact print@newsprint.com.
Today is the 20th of June 2023, and here are some of your top stories. Kenya's KenGen plans to expand geothermal projects in Tanzanian market. KenGen is eyeing drilling deals in Tanzania in what looks set to cement the Kenyan electricity producer as the leading geothermal power company across the continent. KenGen acting managing director Abraham Sarem told the Business Daily that the firm is awaiting a response from the Tanzanian government for two projects whose value remains undisclosed. Entry into Tanzania adds to similar projects in Ethiopia, Djibouti and Rwanda, cementing KenGen's fast-rising reputation as the go-to company in exploring and drilling geothermal wells. The firm has been aggressively looking for opportunities to offer its geothermal services in its revenue diversification plan. We have responded to expression of interest for two from Tanzania and we are waiting for their response. Some are from studies and others for drilling, said Mr. Salem. The President Samia Suluhu-led government has already identified the area around Lake Ngozi to pilot geothermal power production prospects that KenGen is keen to tap into and grow revenues.
Now, a 72-hour truce between Sudan's warring generals takes effect. A 72-hour ceasefire between Sudan's warring generals took effect on Sunday to allow for the delivery of desperately needed aid to the country on the eve of a humanitarian conference. The army, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has since 15 April been battling paramilitary forces commanded by his former deputy Mohamed Hamdan Daglo after the two fell out in a bitter power struggle. Multiple truces have been agreed and broken in the war that has claimed the lives of more than 2,000 and driven over 2 million from their homes, including at least 528,000 who fled abroad. The latest ceasefire came into force at 6 a.m., with the mediators saying the two sides had agreed to refrain from attacks and allow freedom of movement and the delivery of aid. Witnesses in Khartoum said the situation was calm.
Now, measles and whooping cough outbreaks in South Africa are a sign of low vaccination coverage, experts say. Worldwide, in the decades 2000 to 2020, childhood vaccination led to the reduction of deaths in children under 5 by 50% to 5.4 million deaths per year. Vaccination currently averts more than 5 million deaths each year worldwide. These are deaths that would have been caused by measles, whooping cough, tetanus, polio, diphtheria, pneumonia, rotavirus, diarrhea, and other vaccine-preventable diseases. But in recent months, there have been numerous outbreaks of these diseases. Scientists from the South African Medical Research Council explain why these diseases continue to threaten children's health in the country. Measles is a highly infectious disease that spreads throughout droplets. It is the second most frequently reported disease outbreak in Africa. It accounts for 11.5% of all reported disease epidemics on the continent. Now, children who have not been vaccinated against measles are at high risk of the disease and its complications.
Now, China tells U.S. they must choose between cooperation or conflict. China and the United States must choose between cooperation or conflict. Beijing's top diplomat told U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday, his final day of a trip aimed at improving severely strained ties. Blinken and Wang Yi, China's highest-ranking foreign policy official, spoke for 3 hours on Monday at the ornate state guest house in the ancient Diaoyutai Gardens, according to a State Department official. Neither Washington nor Beijing have confirmed a meeting between Blinken and Xi, China's most powerful leader in decades, whose meeting with President Joe Biden in November in Bali raised cautious hopes for a thaw in the relationship. But American diplomats see a meeting likely with Xi. The Secretary of State's trip to Beijing this time comes at a critical juncture in China-U.S. relations, Wang told Blinken, according to a readout from Chinese state broadcaster CCTV. It is necessary to make a choice between dialogue and confrontation, cooperation or conflict, he said. Wang also issued a warning on Taiwan, the self-ruling democracy claimed by Beijing.
7 schoolgirls drowned on their way to school when the canoe transporting them overturned in Ivory Coast southeast. Rescue authorities and local media reported on Sunday 10 students from a Quranic school boarded a canoe to cross the river Bia and reach the school on the other bank on Thursday. The police secures information platform reported. Unfortunately, during the crossing, the canoe hit a tree stump, causing it to overturn near Abreast, around 100 kilometers east of Abidjan, near the Ghanaian border. Although 3 students were rescued, 7 tragically lost their lives in the river's turbulent waters, police securers said, adding the victims were aged between 8 and 12. The bodies were recovered and a police investigation has been opened, Fraternite Matin newspaper reported.
That brings us to the end of our top stories. Now, after the break in Zambia, authorities have detained officials who used a government vehicle to transport a contraband of cannabis. He'll be here to tell us more, and that is Mr. Mike Situla, right after this quick ad break.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia, as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and oneup2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Algemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
We now cross over to Zambia, speaking to our correspondent Mike Situla, here to bring us the latest news happening on the ground in Zambia. Good morning, Mike.
Africa, good morning.
Now, as Diana mentioned before the break, authorities have detained officials who used a government vehicle to transport a contraband of cannabis. Can you expand on this story?
Yes, something that is interesting, because the officials used a government vehicle from the eastern part of Zambia into the capital city, Lusaka, and they were arrested on Friday with 1150 kg, with 1190 kilogram bags of cannabis. So you can imagine, all the way from the eastern part of Zambia, which is about 500 kilometers into the capital city. They passed all the checkpoints and every security detail, and they were not detected until they reached Lusaka. So the officials have been detained and the contraband has also been seized by the Drug Enforcement Commission, and police have actually now instituted investigations into the matter to ascertain whether the cargo was originally from the eastern part of Zambia or it was somewhere just in between. As the vehicle coming into Lusaka, then the officials took advantage to give a lift to someone maybe who might have tricked them that he was transporting probably something that was not illegal, but in the end it ended up to be cannabis. And the Minister of Local Government and Local Development has warned of stern action against the officials for using a government vehicle to transport cannabis.
All right, now Mr. Sichula, an update on former Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia, Emmanuel Mwamba, who has been charged for forgery. Please give us the details.
Yes, like I did report on Friday last week, that Mr. Mwamba, who was also South Africa's former Zambia's High Commissioner there, who has been charged with forgery and publication of information deemed to cause a breach of peace in the nation. Mr. Mwamba, 52, has been jointly charged with Andy Luchindi, 29, of Lusaka, who is reported to have been operating an online television station without proper documentation. So Mr. Mwamba yesterday as well reported to the police that he was tortured, and that during that process he lost his tooth, and he wants those officials who inflicted such damage as can be seen from that picture to be pursued by authorities. So this is a case that is interesting because Mr. Mwamba is accused of having written a letter that claimed to have been originally from State House, the Ministry of Home Affairs, stating that there were specific instructions given out to some certain officials within government to act in a manner that was disadvantaging the opposition, and also painting a bad picture about operations of government. So we are yet to see how this case is going to pan out. But Mr. Mwamba and the co-accused have since been released on police bond, awaiting court appearance.
All right, do keep us posted on any further updates on that story. Now, some patients who recently underwent a maxillofacial surgery are reported to be responding well to treatment. Can you get into the story?
This is one of the interesting breaks in terms of medical tourism in Zambia, because this case of surgery has been placed at the Kitwe teaching hospitals on the Copperbelt province, where some patients who recently underwent this surgery are doing well, according to the public relations officer, Febi Chilea, who says that the hospital is excited about the achievement ending a situation that some patients from the Copperbelt could be taken to Lusaka for such treatments. But now, if this becomes a trend at Kitwe Teaching Hospital, then it means patients will no longer be required to travel to Lusaka, but those surgeries will be done on the Copperbelt province. So a number of people are having these surgeries, but with this happening on the Copperbelt, it is something that will mean that Zambia is now having a breakthrough in complicated surgeries and operations in the health sector.
All right, now, Mike, last week you did update us on the fact that COVID-19 cases seem to be on the rise in Zambia, and now it seems there have been 2 recorded deaths related to COVID. Please tell us about this.
Yes, this is, like I've also reported on this case, so far, the Ministry of Health has reported 2 deaths as a result of the COVID, which seems to be on the rise in Zambia and across other districts of the country. So the Ministry of Health has told the nation that 2 patients have since died, and they are calling on members of the public to begin to take caution as they go about in their day-to-day lives in order to ensure that this virus does not spread as it did when it first hit the country. They are also encouraging people to get vaccinated, especially those who did not get vaccinated when the vaccines were rolled out in order to contain the COVID virus. So it is something that is of worrying because the ministry did not expect that this case of COVID would claim some lives even after vaccinating close to 50% of the targeted people who are eligible for COVID vaccinations.
All right, thank you so much, Mike Sichula, for bringing us these stories.
Thank you so much, Africa. Good morning. Do have a blessed week ahead.
We certainly do hope to have a blessed week. Now, today is the 20th of June, which means it is the World Refugee Day. World Refugee Day is commemorated on 20 June every year, with estimates of more than 100 million people that will be forcibly displaced or stateless in 2023. Here's a video telling us a little bit more.
20 June marks World Refugee Day. In December 2000, in a resolution to mark the 50th anniversary of the 1951 Geneva Convention relating to the status of refugees, the United Nations General Assembly designated 20 June as World Refugee Day. According to UN estimates, 117.2 million people will be forcibly displaced or stateless in 2023 in the world, nearly 29.3 million of them refugees. According to the UN Refugee Agency's global report, as of December 2022, Southern Africa hosted 9.1 million forcibly displaced people and returnees, of whom 6.6 million were internally displaced by conflict, nearly 1 million were refugees and asylum seekers, and 1.5 were internally displaced returnees. In addition, there were 398,000 people who were displaced internally by natural disasters and due to the impacts of climate change. Forced displacement in the region was mainly triggered by the insecurities in the DRC and Mozambique, Southern Africa's most severe humanitarian crisis. The region is also home to protected refugee situations in Botswana, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
During my decade as UN High Commissioner for Refugees, I witnessed the resilience and contributions of refugees across all walks of life. Their perseverance in the face of adversity inspires me every day. Refugees represent the very best of the human spirit. They need and deserve support and solidarity, not closed borders and pushbacks. As we mark World Refugee Day, we confront a startling statistic. More than 100 million people living in countries rocked by conflict, persecution, anger and climate chaos have been forced to flee their homes. These are not numbers on a page. These are individual women, children and men making difficult journeys, often facing violence, exploitation, discrimination and abuse. This day reminds us of our duty to protect and support refugees and our obligation to open more avenues of support. These include solutions to resettle refugees and to help them rebuild their lives in dignity. We need greater international support for host countries, as called by the Global Compact for Refugees, to boost access to quality education, decent work, health care, housing and social protection. And we need much stronger political will to make peace so refugees can return safely to their homes. This year's theme is Hope Away from Home. I call on the world to harness the hope that refugees carry in their hearts. Let's match their courage with the opportunities they need every step of the way.
What comes to mind when you hear the word refugee?
That's a really hard question.
I get it. You need some inspiration.
I think they're brave.
Resilient.
Hardworking.
Those are good ones. But don't forget about our influence on culture. I mean, look at this food.
We're looking for safety.
Poverty.
Motherloom.
Sure, that's one part of the story, and an important part.
You are still watching Africa Good Morning. Let's get into your economic news. Kenya signs tariff-free trade deal with the EU. Kenya and the European Union have signed a trade deal which, once ratified, will give Kenya tariff-free access to the EU market. This should mean that Kenyan goods would be cheaper for European consumers, which would increase export and create more jobs in Kenya.
Now let's take a look at the economic indicators, proudly brought to you by Bank Vintic.
Everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with MotoGP news, and it is Francesco Bagnaia that leads on 160 points. That's on the standards general classifications. That's after the German MotoGP Grand Prix. It was Jorge Martin that won the Grand Prix. He is from Spain. He drives on a Ducati, and Jorge Martin is now second on the overall list on 144 points. What happened in Germany is that Jorge Martin of Spain won a very tight race. As always, it is Francesco Bagnaia of Italy second. They're both on a Ducati, and also on a Ducati in third position was Johann Zarco of France. Third on the general classifications at the moment is Marco Bezzecchi of Italy on 126 points. And Southern African interest, it is Brad Binder that remains in fifth position, or remains on 96 points. He's down to fifth position now. He unfortunately had a fall in the German Grand Prix. That was with a few laps to go still. He was in third position then, and he had medical treatment as well after that fall. But he is okay, and he will be able to race in the next MotoGP coming up this week. The next one.
That was Ari Hogard with the sports package. Now let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. Kenya's KenGen plans to expand geothermal projects into Tanzanian market. 72-hour truce between Sudan's warring generals takes effect.
Thank you for joining us today morning. And with that, we've come to the end of our broadcast. From me, Glenora Shipura.
And Diana Master, we do wish you a lovely Tuesday ahead.